Do I stay seated?
Te tāhuru matapu ki te kaihana o te rangi. Tanga ki runga I te iti me te rahi. E hui tahi nei. Ki roto I te kōkoro māngi o Kirikiri roa. Ki runga I te riu o Waikato. Ki runga I tēnei whenua. E ki ana he ao te aroa. Kia tau tērā manaakitanga ki runga I te kēngi. He koe ana I runga I ngā tonga kura. Hei poporu ki te ihi, te mana, te wehi, te tapu. Kia koutou e te hāpori I aku whanaunga, te kānui te aroha, te mihi atu kia koe. Kia koutou I hara mai ki mua I te aroaro o te manu kāhui, o ngā kai kauni hera. Mō tō tātou tāone nui o Kirikiri roa, tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou, me ngā rangatahi hoki. Kia ako tēnei tūāhuatanga o te kaunihera, tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. No reira kānui te mihi atu ki ngā mema o ngā rōpu I roto o Kirikiri roa, tēnei mātou e mahi tahi kia kimi I te tehi huarahi, pai no tēnei tāone o Kirikiri roa. No reira e te atua, koro waitia mātou I runga I te aroha me te rangi Māori, arahi mātou I runga I te tika me te pono, ko koe tau mātou piringa, ko koe tau mātou tokatū moana, anei mātou e whakawhetai I runga I te ingoa tō mātou kai whakaora, o ake, pai mārere. Tēnā koutou.
Thank you, Muna. I ngā iwi, I ngā hapu, nā mātāwaka me ngā hāpari o Kirikiri roa, mai whakatau mai, mauria mai, kia koutou kōrero, wairo aroha ki tēnei whare, no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So iwi, hapu, and I forgot māngai, sorry. Iwi, hapu, mātāwaka, māngai, and members of the public, welcome today. We do genuinely welcome you into this space to share your thoughts, your views, and your passion, and we will receive them with respect. And I would like to hope that messages get conveyed with respect and are heard with respect in this room today from wherever they come. So thank you very much. We do have an apology. Councillor Wilson, sorry, no, he's here. Councillor Margaret Forsyth, sorry, is unwell today. So we'll receive her apologies. Councillor Bunting may have to leave and will be transferring from physical presence to Zoom presence.
From 3D to 2D, back again all over the place, but I'll be...
and anything else we'll take as it goes. There may be some other movement during the day. Councillor Pascoe will be arriving at around 11. He is listening in on and off, and he'll be here as soon as he can get here because he's very determined to be here for the decision making as well. So, someone move that those apologies be.
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Thompson, all in favour? Opposed, carried. Confirmation of the agenda is as follows. There's only one item, but it's a biggie. It's a biggie. So move that the confirmation of the agenda be accepted. Councillor Bunting seconds. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Are there any declarations of interest pertaining to this matter, please? No. There being none noted, we'll move on. We have a public forum, just to let you know how we're going to run. We have a number of people from the public who have asked to be heard on this matter. We're going to restrict the presentation to 3 minutes today because we have a lot to get through. And then we will be inviting partners, the Māngai, Mātāwaka, Waikato Tainui to the table to speak at that point as part of the actual agenda item. So we'll have a bit more time. And then we will be going into staff report with questions, debate and all that follows. So I hope that's clear to people, and I apologise that we do have to keep those tight time boundaries, but we have other important work this afternoon as well, and make your words count. So on that then, I will go to the first public speaker, please, which is Horiana Henderson. Oh, sorry, question? Yes?
Through the chair, we'd just like to respond to mihi i tō tātou nei pāpā.
Yes.
E tuku ana te karakia e koro wai mā tātou.
Apologies, yes, and certainly, absolutely.
Tēnei no te pāpā. Anei te iti me te rahi, o nā marae maha ngā reo maha o te takiwā nei, te hari mai, te tautoko o kupu kōrero, e koro ai anō mā tātou kia whai oranga anō mā tātou nei uri whakatupu, mā tātou nei miro katoa ki ana te kōrero, miro mā, miro whiro, miro pangu. Anei he te iti te rahi, te hari mai ki roto i tō koutou nei whare, kia whai oranga anō mā tātou anō. Tēnei te mihi atu kia pāpā, kia koe te pāpā, kia koutou, ana mema o te kaunihira, tēnei no te mihi te reo o te whānau, e noho nei, kia koutou i te atatonu nei, tēnei anō te reo, tuku atu ana kia koutou.
Kia ora.
Wai kato te awa, katohia, katohia, he wai mau. Katohia, he wai mau, kai ke ki te puaha o wai kato te awa, he piko he tani whahi atu patora ke tahuni koe i ngā au kaha o wai kato whakamau tō titiro ki tawhitira ko tau piri te mau a poto tau te tangata te mauri o te motu e ki ngā rawari atu ranga wai wai mō te kingitanga te tongi whakamutu ngā mātu tae rau e o ki au e.
Anei anō, mi kauana, rino ki te whare, koutou katoa, mai mata ki o koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kauana.
Kia ora. Thank you for that. In the course of standard protocol, I forgot that very important part, so I appreciate the reminder for it. Thank you. All right, now we are in public forum. Horiana, hello again. Good to see you again.
Being of Maniapoto descent, on this day I remember the events of Ōrākau 1864, and I mihi to the team at Hamilton City Council for giving me this opportunity to speak quickly so that I can go back to the whenua and be with my whānau at Ōrākau. Ko te pai tata whakamaua kia tina, ko te pai tawhiti whaia kia tata. Secure the horizons that are close to hand and pursue the more distant horizons so that they may become close. Kia ora tātou, I'm Horiana Henderson and I'm speaking in support of option C. I addressed Council regarding its He Paumanawa Order strategy and said it was failing in its aspirations and obligations of honouring Te Tiriti o Waitangi and of working in partnership with Māori. One of the clear failings to me was that Council had not included in that strategy mention of establishing Māori wards within the city and in time for the next local elections. We're so far from realising the ideals of Te Tiriti, of Tino Rangatiratanga, but this is the paitata, the horizon that is nearest us, and we need to secure it now in order to be able to bring the paitawhiti closer. On the matter of disestablishing Māngai Māori, at least during this transitional phase, that shouldn't happen. While Hamilton City Council's tangata whenua voice is shamefully underrepresented, removing the few competent and community-chosen Māori voices you have is not forward-thinking, it's backward. Why are Māori wards necessary? Why can't Māori candidates just put themselves forward and run like any other candidate? I think these are very good questions. The lack of Māori council members, both now and historically, suggests that the status quo has never produced effective Māori representation. The status quo has not worked for Māori, and only a change to the system will bring a change in outcome. While introducing Māori wards does increase Māori representation, it should be acknowledged that in some ways it actually means that Māori participation in our democratic process is compromised. It's not right, but what's at stake? Yet another 3 years of Māori concerns being unrepresented at the council decision-making table. I support the introduction of Māori wards not because it's the best solution to the lack of Māori representation on council, but because it's the intermediate step that is available right now. Based on Māori being a minority in Hamilton City and discriminated against throughout this country, Māori wards are necessary for us to bring that horizon of justice and tino rangatiratanga closer. Minister Nanaia Mahuta has said these are decisions for democratically elected councils. Central government has done their part, now it's time for you to do yours. Mahia te mahi, Hamilton City Council. You are elected to make decisions in the best interests of the people. The unity and prosperity po of He Paumanua Ora both refer to supporting Māori representation and decision making. This is not a feature of the status quo, but you have it within your power to make it a part of our near future. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Any quick question within the time? Oh, Councillor.
Well, I
Sorry.
was there then.
Sorry, hang on, let me just get the right page up. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Paula. Thank you for your submission. You implied that the introduction of Māori wards is not the solution, but it is a step. What is your solution?
I don't have a whole solution for the huge problem that exists within this country, but I know that this is a first step towards making things a bit better. Yeah.
Right.
I'm a full-time mum, so.
Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. Yeah, thanks for your submission. You talked about the fact that Māori standing their own candidates hasn't worked before. Do you not see more positive times ahead? I mean, this council has passed STV, which was heralded as a great thing for diversity.
I see positive
why is
things
it
ahead.
not something that you would entertain as an alternative means of getting representation?
So for Māori candidates to just stand in the general elections. Yeah, I think I outlined that. I think if members of the council think about some of the big issues that have related to Māori and think about some of the feedback that you've gotten from the majority, because Māori are the minority in this city, then you'll understand how hard, if a candidate wants to come out as a strong advocate of Māori, how hard that will be to be able to get those votes when we are a minority within the city and within the voting within electors in the city.
I think my question is, are you not looking back? What about looking forward?
I am looking forward, absolutely I'm looking forward.
Okay, I think the question's answered. I think you've done a good job
I am
answering
looking
the question.
forward, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time. Anna Casey Cox, please. Kia ora, Anna. She's a regular appearance in our council and we welcome you again.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi kia koe mātua tami for your welcome in karakia. Ngā mihi, tuatahi mihi nui ki ngā atua tūpuna i te ao katoa. He mihi nui ki te kingi Māori, kingi Tuheitia me ngā mana whenua o Tainui Waka. Ngā mihi ki te mana whenua o tēnei rohe, Ngāti Mahanga, Ngāti Taimanupō, Ngāti Haua, Ngāti Wairiri, and Ngāti Koraki Kahukura. Ngā mihi ki ngā mangai Māori, me ngā kai kaunehera mō te taone o Kirikiriroa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So we're presenting Roses with Me on behalf of Poverty Action Waikato. Poverty Action Waikato is a network that advocates for reducing poverty and inequality in Aotearoa, New Zealand and in the Waikato. We see poverty in New Zealand as inextricably linked to colonisation, and colonisation is about the domination of one culture over the other, and the Crown has been and still is continuing this story. Māori seats and Māngai Māori address the imbalance and potentially mitigate ongoing colonisation and poverty. There's still much to do, but this is a step in the right direction. So Poverty Action Waikato supports option 3, the establishment of Māori wards for the triennium without consultation with the wider community, and recommend the incoming council retain the existing Māngai Māori system. We support this option because Council's key stakeholders, Waikato Tainui, Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa and Te Hā o Te Whenua have clearly stated through consultation hui their view. So we speak as allies in support of Māori requests. Te Tiriti o Waitangi guarantees tino rangatiratanga, and this has not been upheld. Māori representation and voice in council is a step towards the reclamation of tino rangatiratanga. Māori wards are a Te Tiriti right and responsibility based on the promises of both Article 2 and 3 and the protection of taonga and culture, and the same rights to be represented as Pākehā citizens. Māngai Māori are iwi appointed in this relationship needs to be maintained alongside Māori seats on council. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you very much. Pardon?
I support.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Questions from any councillors? Councillor Van Oosten.
Kia ora, Anna and Rose, and welcome to our debate today. You talked about consultation with or without. I wonder if it's an example of recent consultation that you may see some of the issues of this day reflected in that consultation document at all.
Sorry?
And I'm talking specifically about He Po Manawa Order. Do you think there are themes in there that we might reflect on in our debate today?
Yes, I think in terms of our perspective on no consultation, I think it's about, as we've said, Te Tiriti o Waitangi and honouring that and our Māori partners and what their perspectives are, and going with that instead of this potential process, which is a waste of taxpayers' money in this regard, because this is about Te Tiriti o Waitangi.
Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Paula. Anna, thank you for your submission. Could you expand on exactly what aspects of the treaty you're referring to in terms of the need for both Manga Māori and Māori wards to affect the aspects of the treaty you're concerned about? Exactly what part of the treaty are you referring to exactly?
We're referring to the articles of the treaty.
Of Te Tiriti, actually, not the treaty. We're referring to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which is the Māori, the treaty that Māori
I'm familiar.
signed.
I'm still asking you exactly what part are you referring
The
to?
whole of Te Tiriti, because the preamble talks about building good relationships, and so we're talking about fundamentally building
So is that sovereignty? Is that sovereignty?
It's a step in the right direction. It's not going to get us there, no. But this is a good step to make, and we need to make it.
Yeah. Article 1 refers to kāwanatanga, which is about co-governance, not about what's written in the English version of the treaty, which talks about having sovereignty.
And that's
so we're talking about co-sovereignty.
Sorry, we're moving out of
arrangement.
time, so I do need to just get to
So my
another
final question is, what does co-governance look like? Is it 50% of the seats, 50% of the budget?
Ideally,
what is
Ideally, yeah.
Ideally,
Right.
that would be
going on
the
to 18
ultimate.
months.
No, we're not going to enter into debate,
absolutely.
sorry.
Yeah.
We just want a direct question with a direct answer at this point.
Yeah.
Council will debate later.
Yes, yes, 50-50.
So the answer is yes. You want 50% of the seats and 50% of the budget.
That would be the ideal.
Okay.
Ideal,
Thank you.
yeah.
Under the Te Tiriti.
Okay, no, we don't go into debate. But thank you for raising your points.
Kia ora.
Appreciate your
Kia
time.
ora.
Thank you. So now we have Danielle Marks, I think. Is she here? Not at this point in time. So Reverend Peter Sampson, thank you. Welcome. I don't recall ever having seen you in council before, but I may have.
Oh, this is my first time to speak.
Well,
so,
warm
yeah,
welcome.
so
Thank you.
Yeah. Your honourable councillors, tēnā koutou katoa. Your worship the Mayor, tēnā koe. I'm the Reverend Peter Sampson, a priest in the Anglican Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand in Polynesia. I'm the vicar of the parish of St Aidan's and Claudelands, just across the river here in Hamilton. Today I want to commend you for your consideration of Māori wards. I acknowledge your civic leadership in doing so as you fulfil your elected roles. I enthusiastically support option 3, that you establish Māori wards without wider consultation and that you retain the existing Mangai Māori system. As you're aware, Te Tiriti o Waitangi was a covenant side to establish partnership. Well, the Anglican Church of Aotearoa has a long tradition of trying to live out that covenant partnership. We have our own story of developing systems of governance and leadership that excluded Māori from decision-making positions. As a settler church, we justified our actions as being for the good of all. Over time, things changed. Māori waited and waited for the church to give them space. In response to the Māori Church's pressure to be heard, the Anglican Church's governing body approved limited roles for Māori, whose decisions still came under the oversight and approval of the settler-centred governing body. For Māori to be heard in the church, they had to fight their way through a Pākehā system, train at the most English of training colleges in Auckland, designed to shape clergy in an English model. You see, it wasn't until 1992 that the governing body of the church, the General Synod, decided to give full voice and decision-making freedom to Māori. I believe the time has come for the Hamilton City Council to similarly open up the space for Māori voices to be at the decision-making positions of council as partners. Now, we as a church are shaped by Scripture, and we're motivated by the conviction that all people are loved and valued by God. We believe in this dream of God of a place of unity within diversity, and that this diversity is part of the richness of humanity. So I suggest to all that the Hamilton City Council only benefits by having Māori representation at the council level, and that will be good news for all who call Hamilton home. So in supporting option 3, I've sought to make 2 points. It's that it's time for a better partnership with Māori in decision-making positions, and secondly, that ensuring a diversity of voices on council is good for all. Let's not make Māori wait longer. Huri noa, kia tau te rangimārie o te ata, kia koutou. Anō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We have one question, Councillor Thompson.
Tēnā koe, Reverend. My question is just in regard to consultation. You said you'd prefer option 3 without consultation.
Yep.
What is your reasoning for that?
For me, I think it's around timeframes. There's the sense of we can drag things on and on and on, and I'm more for the let's get things moving and make some difference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Reverend Peter. We appreciate it. Do we have here Danielle? Is Danielle arrived? No. Do we have Taitimu? Thank you.
The history of New Zealand to have Māoris at the council, and you give us 3 minutes. In itself, it's racist. In itself, it's racist. Giving us 3 minutes to put most important issue on the table in the history of New Zealand. Kia ora mai tātou. I'm sharing because she's also one of the speakers, so we might have 6 minutes.
of 3 minutes each.
I'll be a bit lateral with timing, but we do have a lot of people wishing to speak today.
But the point I was trying to make, this is the most important time in the history of New Zealand that Māori wants a voice at this table. And if you're going to get only 3 minutes because you've got more important things to talk about, then I say that you're not even obligated to the Treaty of Waitangi.
No, this is just one phase in it. Thank you.
Kia ora. So I just wanted to make a point that the last time I was here, I looked around the room in the office of your office, Mayor, and sitting up there was Hare Puke. Hare Puke gave his life to the Hamilton City Council, and at the time he never even had a vote, but he gave all his mana to this council. So I just wanted to say also that in 1987 I travelled over to California with Sir Ross Jensen and provided in Sacramento a taonga for sister cities. And it was a privilege to travel with, because he recognised that Māori was very important, but we still didn't allow us to have a vote at the table. So I'm here today to push our issue about whether we should have, or whether we must have, a voice at the table. And in 1868, the Herald wrote, 168 years ago, the Herald wrote, and I want to just quote to you the comments that was made in the Herald 168 years ago. Another subject worthy of a mention is the feat performed by Private Gallagher of the 65th Regiment, who carried a flag on a stick, and as soon as the storming party were in the earthwork shook in the wind, and the Māori approaching to seize it above his bayonet into his chest and allow the rushing at him, at the same time shooting his rifle that charged. This is what happened, and the continuation of that history still hurts the hearts of many Māori. And in the other part of that, it states, all traces of the fight are rapidly wearing away. The dead were buried yesterday, the service being read by the Reverend Archdeacon Bonsall, with a volley fired over them by their comrades. The Māori dead, to the number of 38, who also were by a party of their friends, who under a flag of truce, for the purpose, and the said that the number of them dead and missing in 120. Church service was read to an Englishman on the ground. They had only the day, but one before wrenched from the grasp of savage enemies. Savage enemies. We were there to fight for land. The crown there was fight for a queen. Kia ora mai tātou.
Ai o nuku, ai o rangi, ai o te pauherenga tangata o te motu a Kingi tū heitia, ai o te aitangi atu ki kia mārire, rire rire hau, pai mārire. He uri tēnei no Ngāti Mahuta, Ngāti Whawhākia me Ngāti Wairere. We are here today in support of Māori wards. We will not tolerate our voices being silenced any longer. E mihi ana koe ki o mahi e Nanaia Mahuta. My name is Hana Rāwhiti, named after Hana Te Hemara, who challenged the system, who led Ngā Tamatua in 1972, with her petition for the Māori language to be an official language. She was not going to tolerate being silenced any longer. I am here today with my grandfather, who you could say has definitely challenged the system, also challenged a few statues or two, who has been a part of Ngā Tamatua and the Polynesian Panthers, who has fought with many other of our ruruhi and koroheke to establish our kura, te whare kura o rākau mangamanga. My grandfather and our kaumātua were not going to tolerate their kids and grandkids to be silenced any longer. We have been silenced for 168 years. Today we are the product of their sacrifices, and today I am challenging you. We will not be silenced any longer. My name is Hana Rāwhiti. I am 18 years old. I am a product of Te Reo Māori. I am a product of Te Whare Kura o Rākau Manga. I am a business owner of Mahina that teaches the younger generation on how to use our knowledge in today's age, how we can read the phases in the moon, the tides and the waves, and the navigations in the stars. So my message to you today is we are the first generation since Raupatus to speak our language, to attend Te Whare Kura. We have no choice but to be the first, and we will be the first generation to speak in this council. So out of all the cases you hear today, which is going to make us the first? Which is going to matter 168 years from now? So that our generation will have a voice and be heard. Because if you don't let us speak, I will. I will make sure that our Indigenous knowledge never dies out. I will make sure that our voices will not be silenced for 168 years. My last words to you. We are here today to find a solution to the problem and unite anta kingitanga and kotahitanga. Taku kupu kia koe manuwhiri, ko hikohia ngā maramara o te waka kia tōpū ki te aroaro. Waiho mā waho, hei whera, he koko pika tau. My advice to you, manuwhiri, is to gather together the remains of the tribe before your presence. Leave others to divide them. Your task is to unite them. Now, where is my seat in this chamber?
If I had a hammer in the morning, a hammer in the evening, all over this land, I'll hammer at statues, I'll hammer at... Kia ora mai tātou.
Excuse me, just one question if we may. Councillor Wilson. Pātai.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
A couple of years ago, this council, in dialogue with Tainui Iwi, asked whether or not we should introduce Māori wards, and they suggested we introduce Manga Māori. In light of that, and the fact that we have introduced Manga Māori, and we have 5 amazing voices around this table, how do you feel about that now? Do you feel that Tainui made a mistake asking for that?
No, I believe that you give us influence, such as Māngai, but you don't give us power to vote. Where is my seat in this chamber? I need to be heard in this area, not on that side, not on this side, but on this side.
Okay, but can I ask you, you do realise Manga Māori sit here?
What is your definition of mana Māori?
And they vote here at committees.
But where is the Māori councillor? That's
well,
my question. That's what I'm
glad you asked. We have a Māori councillor currently, and she's unwell. She's unwell. She's unwell.
Councillor Wilson, you've asked your question, and I think we have a clear stand.
The issue here is that the young lady's asking, where's our voting
we hear her
at this table?
We hear that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Kia ora Tipa, Waikato Regional Council.
Kia ora tātou katoa, ngā mihi whānui kia tātou, tū tautoko ana ngā mihi kua whāriki hea I te atanei kia koe, me o kai kaunihira hoki. Kia ora everybody, my name is Tipa Mahuta, I'm a Regional Councillor. I have been for the last 3 terms. Waikato Regional Council proactively set up Māori wards in preparation for the Waikato River settlement, to which you are partners. So I want to talk less and leave more time for your questions. I'm probably the only Māori ward councillor you're going to meet today. Yeah, in the region. So yes, in support of option C, and why have both remedies and all remedies? I just want to go back to some of the questions that have already been asked. Probably the only fuller partnership model than having Māori wards is the partnership board in Rotorua, and you can get all that information yourselves about how successful or not successful, but it's hugely supported by Te Arawa Iwi. If you take that model on board, then what do the iwi in the wider Te Arawa area get? Because they do have people on council as elected members, they have a partnership board, they have people on the community boards around the Rotorua Lakes, and they have settlement trusts. In as much as they are fully leveraged as a region with their Māori partners in development, that's the change. So the difference here in Hamilton, we can feel virtuous about where we've got to already, because you've done some great stuff. Is it enough? Is it changing the dial for Māori constituents in Hamilton? I don't know, because you currently represent me. So you tell me how you include me in my community in your everyday decision making as a councillor. And if you can't say on good conscience that you can, it's because our voice needs to be represented here in its own right. We represent a quarter of your community, but probably more than 50% of its harms befall on my people. So we want to be part of the solution, and inclusion is the way, not habitual exclusion that we have today. I don't have to talk about the system. Go Eco and other groups will talk to you about that. I mean, the other groups that have talked today. But meritocracy, why can't Māori members get here on their own? Again, if you've got the solution to colonisation, bring it on, because we'll be here by merit. I'm as qualified in governance and other things as many of you around the table, but meritocracy would not see me voted in a rural ward where I live. Because why? I don't look like their community, I don't sound like their community, we are not in relationship in community, and that's the truth in Hamilton as well. So again, wanting to leave more time for you to talk and me to listen, but I've left a paper here that our council presented to the Māori Wards debate in Wellington, and also I'm part of that debate, so if you want to know my views more, the extended version is there, and me and Minister Smith did discuss all of these things. Why the urgency, why now, and why not is the answer. So again, over to you, Councillor, you may have questions. And again, don't think I'm the only Māori Ward councillor you may meet. So, kia ora.
Thank you, Tipa.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions, to the point questions, please. No debate. Councillor McPherson.
Kia ora, Tipa. Thank you for presenting today. In your experience, could you say why you think we need more than just māngai on our committees, and how an elected member, in your experience on the regional council, has helped Māori?
So local government is an embedded and old institution and not embedded within any mātauranga Māori at all. So you need Māori in every level. You need Māori staff, you need Māori māngai, you need Māori mana whenua groups, you need Māori ward councillors. Why? Because this institution is very white New Zealand, and I don't have to over-explain why it's like that to you. So it's going to take a long time to learn, so you need to move all the dials quickly and buy the whole app, not just part of it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. Can you name the currently elected Maori councillor at Hamilton City Council?
Yes, Margaret Forsyth, but having talked to Margaret, she does not purport to speak for all Māori in the city. You do.
Right.
You speak for all of us.
But you in your capacity,
yes,
having been elected in a Māori ward, would speak on behalf of all Māori.
That's my responsibility.
Your voice would. And how do you differentiate that from Margaret's voice?
How do I differentiate that from Margaret? Well, in debate, I've participated with Councillor Forsyth, and she did outline it in that debate, in that particular committee, that she did not purport to speak for all Māori in Hamilton. She spoke for her constituency, which is not Māori based. So it's just like all of you speak for me right now, because there is no singular Māori voice. She has Māori ethnicity. I'm not denying that, but she herself.
Okay, I think you've answered the question.
So,
thank
okay,
you.
we're speaking for her, and she's not here. I don't like doing that.
Thank you. Sarah.
Tēnā koe, Tipa. Thank you for your for speaking. I'm interested in consultation. There's option 3 talks about with or without consultation, and then there's also another option which talks about having more consultation but moving things to next term. So I'm interested in your views on that.
Well, I guess, again, you've got a room full of Māori who would know what's the nervousness about. Waikato Regional Council wasn't the most forward gumboot in the pack when it made the decision, but they knew that was the region that they were building. The region they were building was with us around our river, so they were brave. And today we're asking you to be braver maybe than the rest of the city, but from what I've seen in this city, the small change that your council has made, people want to be heard, they want to be included, they march now, they show up now. If you want to stop all of that, make a different decision. But I say, why not? Asked the same question by Minister Smith about the time, the speed of the inclusion of this Māori ward. I said to him, well, inclusion should be easy. Giving us rights to be fully participants in the team of 5 million should be easy. Keep saying no to us, that should be a hard decision. So kia ora koutou.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Angela had a question, Tipa.
Sorry, thank you so much, kia ora. I just wanted to clarify, Tipa, when you said about your seat as a Māori ward representative, is it your is that something that you take to the table in terms of you've made the choice to speak for all Māori in that ward, or is that something that's in legislation?
So the Waikato Regional Council has 2 Māori wards.
Yep.
I'm in Ngā Haue Whā, which is Greater Hamilton up to Waiuku, and the other Māori seat is the rest of the region. And it's population based, so half the Māori in the region are in my seat and the other half are in Kataraina. So yes, for all practical purposes, only people on the Māori roll can vote for us.
Yep.
So we are Māori representatives, not unlike your members of parliament.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
That's why.
Thank you very much. Do we have Donna here? Kia ora.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou katoa, nā me inui ka koutou e hui mai nei. Tēnā koutou e rauranga tira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko ai au, ko tōna pōkere Phillips ahau, he uri no tainu I tuwhare tō Taranaki hoki ahau. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And there are a couple of kaupapa that I have on the table. One is that I tautoko the third point, option for setting up a Māori wards. Now, I actually, and I want to mihi to Tipa, I was the person that created the strategy to establish the Māori constituent seats for the regional council. And I originally, my first option was to have 5 representatives that represented the 5 iwi within our rohe. And as you do, you try to put your best foot forward, but in the end we got 2. Now it's really important that I make you aware that we need to have mana whenua representation. Now we have 5 hapu, and I respect that you have a māngai here, but we have 5 hapu and we also have mātā waka. So it's really important that when you're looking at establishing these wards, that we consider the 5 hapu and mātā waka. That's the first point. Now I look around the tepu and I do not see any representation of myself and the values that I believe in and the values that I believe that our whānau that are here believe in. So it is really important that we have a Māori ward. And I guess the decision for you is to decide what that ward looks like. Representation is really important because the other kaupapa that I'm here for is I also represent DUN, decolonising oppressive names everywhere. Now, if we have Māori representation around the tipu, I'm sure I wouldn't have to hand you the petition that I'm going to hand over today, Your Honour. So that's really important. I want to use the petition to decolonise oppressive names everywhere as an example of why we need Māori representation around the tipu. Kia ora mai tātai.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've never actually met.
I already had booked in to have my own time, but can I do it now?
You can, while you're sitting in the seat, you may as well do your time now.
Yeah, all right.
I haven't never met you, so thank you.
Kia ora koutou. So my name is Sakai Tawhaiti Smith. No Heretaunga hau, no Ngāti Kahununu, no Tūwhare tō, no Tainui hoki. Paula. So in the 1400s, Romanix Pontifex, the Roman Pope, sent out a papal or decrees to all the European kings, and he said to them, go out to the world, conquer the lands, wipe away the inhabitants, take over, submit them to the Roman religion. If they do not join our Roman religion, kill them or make them our slaves. They are not to own any land, and you are to categorise them as fauna or flora, or animals, rats, goats, foxes. That's how we were looked at. So I'm just glad to be a human today, to be able to sit at this table. So the reason why we need Māori wards is that there are street signs here in Hamilton that are named after murderers and rapists. Von Temsky, Bryce, Gray, what was the other one? Cameron, Kerry, Fox, right. Nixon, a lot of them. And so I'm here to say that we need to remove those signs because they are the names of terrorists who came here and killed innocent Māori, especially women and children, non-combatants. If they did that today, that'll be known as a war crime. So those guys are war criminals. Governor Gray was an opium addict. So we got a drug dealer, a druggie. We have his name on these street signs. And I know you guys know about them because Vincent O'Malley did a report on them. And I noticed that he said that a couple of them were just played minor figures in this invasion. But the thing is, they couldn't be that minor if their names are on a street sign. So I'm asking you, Paula, that there's no debate about these street signs. You don't need to wānanga about it or talk about it. Your responsibility now is to remove those street names and let mana whenua rename them. Kia ora.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions? And we are really just taking questions on the Māori seat issue today, notwithstanding what you have said about the other matters. No questions? No? Thank you. Thank you very much.
I would just like to hand this petition to you.
We will accept the petition. I'll just talk to that in saying that there are some requirements about accepting petition. A valid petition will be considered by council or committee within 60 days of receipt of 2 meeting cycles. So I can accept it. It will have to be verified as a genuine petition and all the other processes that are enshrined in law.
It's from the people, so it's verified.
I understand
it's from the community.
I understand the intent of it, but it does have to go through a formal process in this council. But I will accept it from you. Thank you.
Ka pai. Kia ora.
Thank you. Do we have, Daniel has not arrived. Daniel may not be arriving, that's okay. Isaac? Oh, okay, sorry, I'm getting off the list here. Okay, so I have no one else. Do I have anyone else who would like to speak in the public forum? No. Okay, thank you. I want to thank you all for taking the time in this part of the process to share your views. We are now going to go into the item itself, which is there on your agenda. And we're going to, before we put up, there are some motions that were in the staff report, and there's some motions that have come from the... Yeah, coming. Just about to explain that, sorry. You're half a second ahead of me. So there are motions that are in the agenda. There are motions that have come from councillors. I now want to invite our partners to come to give us a short, presentation on their views. And I will begin with, is there an order? Has an order been suggested? Yeah, that's appropriate. Thank you. Donna Flavel from Waikato Tainui. And then...
Kia ora koutou, e te pāpā, hara mai, kia ora tōna. E te pāpā, tēnei te mihi atu kia koe tēnei ata, o tira tēnā tātou te whānau, e tēnā koutou te tēpū. Kia ora koutou. So I'm Donna Flavel. I'm speaking on behalf of Waikato Te Whakakitinga Waikato Incorporated, which is the official entity here of Waikato Tainui. We represent 68 marae and 33 hapu. And I'm here to support option C in its entirety. And before I start, I wanted to just make a correction around the tribe's position around the Māngai Māori and the decision we made in relation to that part a few years ago, particularly around the Māori wards. We've always advocated, we have always been an advocate to have representation around the tipu. That has always been our view, and in fact, we should be the decision makers within our rohe, with our hapu and our marae leading the way. So I just wanted to say that at the time that the decision was made, it was in relation to, the issues that we had, where 3/4 of the voting population, and it was never going to fly. So that was a practical way forward. It was only a stepping stone. This in terms of the leadership shown by Minister Mahuta to be able to influence Māori wards, and having this conversation today is another stepping stone in our perspective. So I just wanted to clarify, given the position that you asked our whānau. So in terms of Waikato Taonui, I just wanted to raise 3 points. We've actually presented a letter of our views. Apologies from our chair who isn't able to be here today. She's got very strong views around Māori wards and our representation across the rohe. But I've got 3 views. One, the role of Māngai and extending this to include the wards. So I've just talked a little bit about that. But that again, from our perspective, when we think about co-management and our settlement from the Waikato River, it was always about the iwi, our hapu, our marae being the decision makers within our rohe. So that's first and foremost. And whether that includes 50% representation or whether that's more than that, that is our aspiration to be sitting around the table. And I'm pleased that our rangatahi are here actually, because I hope one day they'll be in my seat as well as your seat, to be making decisions for our future generations and our mokopuna to come. The other part is, I think, you know, this is an opportunity for some leadership from councils, and I take Tippa's point that she's already raised. I want to be able to support that. You know, the time is right now to be able to be bold and be brave about, you know, having inclusivity around Māori representation, in particular iwi and hapu. So there is a difference between general Māori, can I just say, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but the mana whenua, I also want to make a point about that, because there is a difference. Our mana whenua, we are the ones that have been here. We are a resilient tribe. We are a resilient iwi. You've seen that with our aupatu. We've even been exiled to our whānau, our maniapoto, but we are back, and we want to be the voice of our people. And we want to be the voice of Hamilton, and we want to work together with the councils to be able to make decisions. So I just wanted to say that, you know, not to forget that we've got our hapu and our marae are here in Hamilton, and I want to make sure that that's inclusive. And yes, we have voices of also our whānau, our mātā waka whānau as well. And I do want to acknowledge that as well, because everyone is doing a good job. We all want to get the outcomes, but I do not want us to forget the role of hapu around the decision-making table. The other point I want to make is, as I said before, we have whakapapa to this whenua, we have whakapapa to this community, we have whakapapa to our wai. And so we are generations. This is we're going to be here long before any of us, you know, so we change around this table every 3 years, but our people are going to be here forever and ever, moa ke tonu atu. So I just wanted to say, you know, if we are going to be bold and ambitious, we want that decision for you to be able to do that today. So again, we're in support of option C. We want to be able to utilise our existing manga, and I think they are doing a great job, and I've heard many feedback from all of the councillors around, you know, their thinking and their skills and their participation in the decision-making process around council. We want to extend on that, and we want to have positions around this table as well. So that is our expectation moving forward. So on behalf of the iwi, that's our submission.
Thank you very much for that. Just a quick question. I think, Donna, I heard you say whether that be equal number or more. So in your earlier on, when you were talking about representing iwi and hapu, do you therefore think the number of Māori seats should seats be, whenever they might be implemented, the number of seats should represent that hapu relationship? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So they could be, because by population, which is currently how it's determined, right? And as Tipa knows, that doesn't necessarily capture all hapu.
Yes.
So what you're suggesting that potentially the system would include more seats?
Well, I would encourage more voices to represent most of our population, in particular the voices of our mana whenua, yes.
Right. And Māngai strengthened to give more effect to hapu, what do you think of that?
Our Māngai are there to be representative of our wider interests, cool. and they're actually there based on skills as well, because they actually contribute. They're very skilled practitioners, they're very skilled people in their roles, so they offer that voice as well.
Thank you. A couple of quick questions. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. Thanks, Donna. You mentioned Mana Whenua's resilience. Has Tainui as an organisation ever picked some candidates to run for Hamilton City Council and funded them and had a crack at that?
Yeah, no, we haven't done it. We've always been quite apolitical, but then of course, what does that mean? But that is a strategy. I mean, it's a strategy that I know is employed by others, and that's something we haven't formally done, ever.
Why? You've got the resources.
Yep, and that's a good question, and that's something that we've just never done it that way, because we've always felt that our voice should be, is it right? You know, it is a partnership, it is part of the titiriti, it should be a right. It should be a right to be sitting at this table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor Paula. First of all, Donna, can I thank you and Tainui for the quality and the expertise the Manga Māori bring to this chamber. They have mana here, and they are respected, and they add real value.
Excellent.
I'm interested in your view of if there was a Māori ward and there were Māori represented of that ward, do they only then speak for Māori, or do you see their role as speaking for all people in the constituent seat? I'm really just trying to understand that, because, yeah, I mean, that's the question.
So if I put that into context and I think about the leadership at the Waikato Regional Council, we had our Māori board member, Tapa, who was actually the deputy chair. So if I think about that in terms of being the deputy chair and what does that mean, that role was not only speaking for our people and the wider, but she was also speaking for the wider community. So I think when you're in these roles, it is about working together, working kotahitanga, working under the korowai of the kingitanga principles. You know, those are the values that we work to. We also manaki people who are outside our rohe, you know, so we know how to do that. We know how to do that really, really well. We can manaki our people, we can manaki out people who are not from within our rohe, and we can look after them.
Thank you.
One final question, if I could, very quickly. In light of the fact that if this was introduced now, those who are on the general role couldn't move to the Māori role in time for the next election. What would Tainui be doing to try to help encourage people to join the Māori role, thus to engage with the two Māori wards if they were created?
Yeah, so firstly, it's our people's choice which role they want to be on. So, we would encourage our whānau to have their voice. So whatever role that is their voice that they want to be able to exercise. The Māori wards, and that's the opportunity. I think if people are enrolled on that, a lot of it's communication. What does that mean? What do the choices make if you're on the Māori role versus general role, and how do you influence our representation? So a lot of it comes down to communications and being able to, to be able to share with our people what those decisions might mean and how they might be able to influence change.
But what would Tainui do as an organisation?
Yeah, that's part of the communications, I
to
think.
encourage people to enrol in the Māori role?
Yeah, so I wouldn't dare tell our people what to do because they have their own minds and they have their own way to do things. But like I said, we will be able to share education and communications just about what that means in terms of the decisions and optimal outcome to have a seat and representation around this table.
Thank
you.
you.
I think comms is key to be able to educate and share.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your...
I have my...
yeah.
Yes.
Kia ora, te kaunihira. I'm just... The point, I think, is having the courage to have another Māori sit at the seat and in partnership, because we actually do have really good ideas that can benefit the whole community, not just Māori community. And so that's the point. If we're sitting here sharing with our values, and our history and the knowledge, that's what we bring, as well as all of that to this table. And so that can synergise in a way moving forward for everybody. And so that's what our whānau are actually requesting, to sit here just like you, to hear the story and to add value of our history, because it's a rich history that can contribute to our future planning. Kia ora.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Kia ora.
Next we have Rawiri Bidwa representing Thorpe, Te Hau o Te Whenua o Kirikiriroa.
Hara mai. Kanono tātou, i atu tai mai ki tēnei ata, i te timata pōwhiri hakatau tame me karakia Don, i a kuru, ki nā kuru i anō, tātou te manu, te whenua, mātā waka, hapu me nā iwi o Waikato Tainui, i a koe, Timi, i a koe, nau mai hara mai. Ia koutou rā, tēnā koutou katoa, i anō, tātou te minita, ta kampala o tēnei tepu, me nā mea, whola, ia koutou rā, tēnā koutou katoa. Apologise for interrupting before Miss Me, Paula, around, I thought you'd missed me out, you know. That will never happen, you know that. 20 years ago, we organised an organisation called Ngā Mana Tōpū o Kirikiriroa. At that time, it was led by Hare Puke, as Tim was talking about. He was one of the main instigators of participation, be that at the lowest through to the highest level of local bodies. I had the occasion of being able to be another one of his slaves, I suppose, for want of a word, not because he made me, because I wanted to. And during that time, I learnt a lot of things from Hare. One of them, which I raised in the Māngai Māori debate a couple of years ago, was that democracy will never work for Māori. I always asked him why, and I still couldn't understand it until only just recently when the Māngai Māori debate came up. And it's all about democracy is bringing forward the views of the communities, the views of the different sets of parts, segments of the community. Unfortunately for the democracy as we know it, there is but one winner. And therefore, the ability to bring forward the different views of the community, whatever community you're talking about, including yourselves, I suppose, for want of a word, gets more and more difficult. It's greatly difficult for us, Māori, because our society is different from your society. Our society is based on mana, manaaki, rangatiratanga, who's who in the zoo, in the ranking. Yours isn't. Yours is who shouts loudest, who looks the best, who's got the most money. Te mea. So what he said to me at that time was that irrespective of how many people in your community, it's about getting those branches or those sectors of that community to the table for the benefit of whom? As Don says, not just Māori, it is for the benefit of the city that we surround, incorporate, are part of, and can contribute to. What are those communities? The lowest level, you've got the individual, then you've got the family, then you've got the hapu, then you've got the iwi, then you've got the kingitanga, particularly in the Waikato, which you haven't got in other regions. Yeah? So how do you bring those voices to the table, those communities to the table. 2 years ago, we had the debate around the Māngai Māoris. What for? To bring the Mātau Waka and the mana whenua to the table. The problem with that is that the mana whenua don't necessarily live here. They live on the outskirts of your boundaries. Not our boundaries, your boundaries. So what happens there is they can't vote in these elections, but they can contribute through the Māngai Māoris, which is what we've been doing, to try and add value to the city. So what's missing? You're going to get the Kingitanga view directly from the Kingi. You're going to get the Iwi Authority view and the Whakakitinga view directly through the JMAs and legislation and all the rest of it. You're going to get the mana whenua views through the Māngai Māoris. You're going to get the Mātau Waka through the Mātau Waka, through the Māngai Māoris. The one you're not going to get is the Māori general person who lives in Hamilton. Now, if there was a ward, that would be one place you would target. If there were 2 wards, then the other place would be to enable all these other communities to come forward. So I leave those thoughts with the table on what it's about. And it's not about me and you, it's about, as Don says, contributing to the betterment of the city, which we live in or have lived in and around, have our history around for the last 160 years. And I'll leave those thoughts with all of you today. Kia ora koutou katoa. No, ka pai.
No? Okay, thank you.
Pātai anō.
Huh?
Pātai, iri pātai. If not, I'll go.
No, it doesn't seem to be any pātai. Thank you, and thank you also for what you do alongside us at so many events and times together, and some tricky problems that we've had. We've appreciated it in the last year very much. Thank you. No questions. So we'll move on to the next. So there is an apology from Andrea today on behalf of Mātau Waka through the Runanga. So Ollie is our Māngai representative who represents Mātau Waka at this stage. So he's speaking in that capacity at this point in time, not in his Māngai capacity per se, right?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, very much the thinking woman's parrot this morning. Mihi atu kia koe tame nā hau e hoaki nā tatau mō tātai mō tēnei ata, kei te mihi kia koutou wakato tainui nā koutou mātou nā mātau waka e manaaki tiaki, kei te mihi atu kia koutou. Utura ki te taumata e hui mai nei, tēnā koutou. So I do represent Andrea. We had a good discussion this morning, and throughout the week actually she's got a range of different obligations today, including an order that was put off from COVID, and just can't be here. So speaking very much on hers and the Runanga's behalf today. So the Runanga supports increased Māori representation. Option 3 is the Runanga's preferred option. The Runanga has seen the Māngai roles as being effective in raising issues and being a Māori voice for council, to council. The Runanga is reluctant to see the disestablishment of the Māori roles, as they believe they are working well, and that the establishment of the Māori wards may take some time to develop and establish. Practically, the Runanga wants both Māngai and Māori wards, with the Māori wards being built on the foundation of the Māngai and Māori roles. In an ideal world, looking at the end approach in time for the 2022-25 triennial. This is why the Runanga supports option 3.
Kia ora. Thank you very much. Very straightforward. Any questions, anyone? No? Oh yes, Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, kia ora, Ollie. Thanks for that. How do you view the difference between Māngai and their representation onto the committees that's been happening the last 2-3 years versus the Māori ward representation that might occur? What's the difference in your mind or within the Runanga's mind? Yeah.
I think in the Runanga's mind, very mindful of the words of my aunt, Pari Waka, who said only the kumara talks for its own sweetness. But with regards to the Māngai Māori, I think those roles are selected based on skills and experience and bring that expertise to the various committees. I think with regards to the Māori wards, that's the opportunity for representation around the council table with a vote at the council table.
And you think that's, the Runanga says that's missing at the moment and needs to be added to what we already have?
Yeah, the Runanga would like to see increased Māori representation and see that as a natural step in the journey as council builds its Māori representation.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Cash.
Thank you, Ollie. Ollie, I have deep respect for you and for the work you do and the skills that you have. So this is just a question to help me understand better. You yourself, or someone like you, if you had to stand in the general election in the wards that we have currently, what barriers or challenges do you think you would face? As in, why do you think this would be beneficial?
I think, councillors, Your Worship, you've all been through the election process. I remember reading an article by Matt McCartan a few years ago, and he's pretty experienced behind-the-scenes campaigner. And from what I remember from his article, he talked about like 3 ingredients that are required for successful election funds, like big resources, a network of volunteers, and an organiser, someone who knows how the system works to be able to run a successful campaign. And so I think, I look at that, having Māori wards, it provides an opportunity for genuine Māori representation within that structure to be able to stand versus the challenges of standing, I guess, in general wards. We've seen before, I remember Matiu Dixon stood a few years ago. He had support, and I wasn't involved in that campaign, so I'm not sure of resources and the skills behind the organisation. But I think he's demonstrated just the challenges of standing and being successful in the general wards. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ollie. Talking of Māngai, Council is very keen to hear from our Māngai representatives, and available to us is Hemi and Norm today. Are you coming up together? Is Norm here? Yeah. So, we're running very close time. Sorry. Okay, I'll let Ollie. Would you like to come forward again? Just a second. Norm, stay there. And just answer a couple of more quick questions. Councillor Van Oosten.
Thank you, Ollie, for the presentation on behalf of the Runanga. You didn't talk much about consultation, and I wonder what the Runanga's view is on where consultation should be had, and has there been adequate consultation to date?
Yeah, Andrea and I talked at length about that, and I guess the response was, Aka Miho pai apa mātou, will sit on the fence on that one. I think it's a challenging one. I think there has been a degree of consultation through He Pau Manawa Order.
Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you.
Councillor Wilson, last question of this round.
Ollie, you have huge mana in this room. This is a little cheeky, but can I have your opinion on which option you support rather than who you're representing today? Can I have your voice?
No, I'm actually not going to. So, with all due respect, I'm not going to put Ollie in that position. I sat him there at the table as representative of Mātāwaka. And so now we have the Māngai. And if you want to talk to him in the tea break about that, his personal views, then if he likes to share them, he will. Sure. Councillor, thank you, Ollie. That's fine. You can sit here with your colleagues if you like, Māngai colleagues.
You sure?
Yeah.
Bring it, stand it down.
Yeah. All right. So,
it's interesting that today is the 1st of April.
Oh, what?
And, when you're in trouble, you ring 111.
Yeah.
If you add those 3 together, you get option 3. So I just want to have the 111. What one is about honouring the treaty of Waitangi,
And this issue is not going to go away whether it's dealt with here today. You can see behind me some very passionate rangatahi who are dedicated to making sure that's going to happen one day. So that decision is going to happen one day, people, whether it's on your shift or not. Secondly, the Māngai Māori is working, so why fix it? You know, why, if it's not broken, sort of thing. And the third thing is about looking forward. I think we should consider at some point in time adding a culture and identity committee to the council that will allow you to embrace the growth and changing demographics, provided that Māori have a seat at the table. What we're arguing about today is not about how many numbers are on the bus. We just want to get on the bus. That's the trouble. We can't get on the bus. And hence why I applaud Minister Mahuta's championing of the Act, because basically that's why we're here. This has been tried before. The only way we're able to address this is through legislation. Now, we have these votes in bits and pieces, so the difference is Māngai Māori are appointed as opposed to democratically elected. And with democracy, that's absolute right to be right and absolute right to be wrong. You may not always get the right people, there it is. Now, I recall at a groundbreaking ceremony at the base some years ago where a former mayor said, what is good for Hamilton is good for Waikato Tāne. And what is good for Waikato Tāne is good for Hamilton. We've had some experiences with the base and we've had some experiences with Ruakura, but you only allow us to stay in the economic well-being. We've got 4 well-being that we have to address. And I'm saying address the other ones. I just want to end this presentation to a quote by the late Sir Robert Mahuta. He said, the most challenging distance to travel for anyone is only 6 inches. That's from one earlobe to the other, and it's called attitude. You change that and you can change the world. I'm asking councillors to take that step.
Okay, Norm, do you want to add anything at this point? And because we don't have all Māngai here, it's hard to get that collective view, but I'm hoping that one of you will talk about what you've been saying as a collective group.
Yeah, tēnā tātou. I just want to again acknowledge the previous speakers and the sentiment, the intent and content that's been presented. And me, Paula, I was going to do my presentation in Te Reo Māori only to signal something significant at the table today, but I won't. In regards to my presentation, it's really going to be a narrative. The position, the intent and content of Waikato Tainui, who we represent, has been provided today. But can I share this story? Just prior to the meeting, I had a audience with our rangatai from Te Wharekura Rako Mangamanga, and I shared my journey, having come through the journey of Te Wharekura Rako Manga through the Tribal Graduate Program. I recall in 1995 sitting in Donna's team with regards to the river settlement and or Mea Taiao. Sir Robert said the future of the tribe lay in the talents of our people, and its education is the key. And so I sit here proud as a product through the leadership of Tautamu and Sir Robert and Hemi as the CEO in the day, and alongside Donna, Mara and others, to represent the views of my people, my culture and my values. But in my experience over the last few terms, other than we've been praised today quite a lot, but you know, there's no acknowledgement of the waiata, so I just want to acknowledge there's a few cultural waiata singers within the mix as well. But one of the key attributes that I see within the Māngai model is that we have a voice in committees only, and for me there is a shortcoming at the influential, at the decision-making level, which is the table right now. And again, I go back to Te Reo Māori, and I was going to present in Te Reo, and I didn't, because there is a need to fulfil, in my humble opinion, the role of a Māori ward representative to represent our culture at the highest level within the council, and this is as a councillor. And if I go back to Tā Tikotahi, he also said to us as a graduate team, what's good for Māori is great for New Zealanders. So what's good for Māori is great for New Zealanders. And if we take that conversation to Kirikiriroa, We know that through the settlement in 1995, the Raupatu is now providing numerous rates for Hamilton City Council. If we look at the advocacy around the Waikato River settlement, and we know the benefits that's been distributed across the wider sector of our community with regards to the funds that the tribe negotiated on behalf of the collective, it reinforces the message is what's good for Māori is great for everyone. And so on behalf of, or sitting alongside my colleagues, we also support the Māngai as well as the council, the Māngai Māori wards, to ensure that we have a voice at the highest level, whilst also being represented at the subcommittee level to advocate for those key kaupapa Māori i roto i ngā rautakianga whakamua nei. Kia ora.
Thank you, thank you. We've got some questions. We're going to run through a quick bunch of questions. I have one to start with, and then just to forecast, because the number of people here are sitting uncomfortable, we need to have a comfort stop. So we'll do that. We'll do the suite of questions, and we'll take a short break before we come back to. I just want to start off one question, Hemi. We've had a couple of conversations in previous, not that we've had a lot of time to discuss this since Nanaia, Minister Mahuta, made the decision that she made, but we've had a couple of discussions. Now, I remember you saying very clearly, we've got three, I thought it was quite to the point, we've got three choices: no, yes, later. Right. So now I want to ask you, if given the work that Māngai and Council alongside each other have done with Hei Pō Manawa Ora, is there a possibility of a time frame that allows greater to bed this down, Hei Pō Manawa, and all the 30 plus actions within it, and get to Māori seats? Because I also talked with Minister Mahuta for about 45 minutes, and she describes Māori seats as part of the suite of tools into which local government can draw from. What she prefers to focus on is meaningful, in-depth participation of Māori. So just want your comment on that. Timing.
About timing.
Timing.
No, it's about attitude, really.
Pardon?
It's about attitude. If there's a willingness for things to happen, it'll happen. So I talked to you before about I'm not into forced marriages. And what I'm saying is that you have to have two willing partners to make some magic.
Yeah.
And hence why there's a willing partner there just waiting for someone to say I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say, madam.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then my question
I'm just trying to say, what I'm trying to say is we're not bound by time. The time is bound within ourselves. It depends on our attitude.
I understand it. Thank you. That's a good, clear answer to my question. We haven't, of course, had any wider engagement on this matter, so we don't know what. We know what we may feel. We don't know what anyone else has.
I think the purpose of the Act is to allow the councillors to make that decision whether you go to consultation or not. And I know it's not part of this, but I just want to, whilst we have different feelings, I could understand the fate of the Fijian people where they felt they were no longer part of their country because they were no longer the numbers. It comes down to numbers. And it's the same argument here. It comes down to numbers. But what we're sort of saying is that, do you believe that Māori should have a meaningful seat on the bus next to you? Yes or no? And it's just it's simple. Yes or no.
Okay. Thank you.
Not
thank
now.
you. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Mayor Paula, thank you for your presentation, Hemi. I've listened carefully to your analogy about the seat on the bus and the fact that that's not currently available. Could I ask you, can you name the 4 Māori who were elected to Hamilton City Council who've had a seat on the bus?
I don't understand the purpose of that question. I'm sorry, Ewan, I don't actually understand the purpose of the question, and I'm not happy to answer that.
You've talked about getting a seat on the bus.
You're missing the point that the people here today are trying to say. And if we are meaningfully trying to engage a relationship to moving forward, let's move forward. Let's look forward. We can go back into the past. So yesterday, my school was engaged. I just want to
just answer the question directly.
If we can move forward, that's the issue. Is that, do we want to move forward, or do we want to still remain aggrieved in the past? We can sit and collaborate or do whatever. but we need to have a meaningful relationship moving forward together.
Well,
Thank
maybe
you.
I could reword the question. Have Maori been elected to this council?
I'm
in the
sure they
past?
have over the past. I can't name them. But the issue is really about, do you believe under the treaty that Māori have a right to be here anyway? That's the issue. That is the issue.
So you've had your question asked, Councillor Wilson, it's
Sorry.
been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Sorry.
No, that's fine. We just want to, this is the time for debate will come. So I just want
Oh, I thought it was here.
well, I'm trying not for it to
Oh,
be
time to
here.
go home now.
You know how it goes. I've got a couple of questions. Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, thank you. Look, since you're at the table here formally, I also want to say that I very much enjoy having you sitting around the table, and you bring humour and wisdom and a voice of your people. So thank you for that. I do actually want to ask, you've said that the preference is for option 3. So none of these options give appropriate time for full public consultation. And forgive me if I don't say this the correct way, but I've always understood that hui is really important to Māori, that you take your time with big decisions and issues and you talk to your people and you get together. So with that in mind, why would your advice to us or your wish to us be for us to not do the same with our wider community? Given that, as I said, all of these options don't really give us enough time to do the usual wider public consultation.
Mike Moore made the comment, why are you having a referendum? We would know the answer. You know, and what I'm saying is that we're going out, if we go out to consult, we're asking 80% of the population of Hamilton to make a decision on 20%. What should happen is that you go and ask Māori, do you want Māori representation, yes or no? You return the decision making back to Māori. So I don't think it should be viewed as being separate or alternate. It's just about allowing, as teachers, why don't we ask the kids what they want? No one's asked the children, and we make the decision for that. And what I'm saying, non-Māori are making the decision for Māori in certain areas.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's just a matter of attitude, Madam.
Clear question, clear answer. Thank you, everyone. We are going to go into an adjournment, but I don't want to be a long one because I want to give the debate good process. So only till 10 past. So bring something, a snack and grab a cup of tea. Get comfortable. 10 past. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to move into the, oh, I haven't got my agenda up now, move into the next phase of the meeting. You will have seen in the staff report, there were 4 options. There are a couple of other, there's an option and a foreshadowed and an amendment proposed shortly. What I intend to do is just to take the report as read, because we have been over the machinery of this a number of times. But I will ask if you have any questions about the timing or the process, to direct them to Becca and Sean now, and then we can move into what is really the most important, is that we have a proper sound debate. Councillor McPherson.
I have a question to the process. Thanks.
Thank you.
Becca, Sean, thank you. If option 3 were to go through, what consultation is required? What other work is required to be done? You mentioned previously that in order to get things ready, sorted for the next election, you mentioned that we'd have to, there'd be a normal sort of review then of things like wards and that so forth. Can you just explain that? I'm trying to work out what else then happens.
Sure. So thanks for your question, Councillor McPherson. Dale can jump in if he feels the need to, but essentially there's no requirement to undertake wider community consultation as part of option 3. What would happen if Māori wards were established, or the decision was made to establish Māori wards this triennium for next triennium, would be that we would have to undertake a wider representation review process. As part of that wider representation review process, we would undertake consultation about number of wards, number of councillors, etc. But the consultation on whether Māori wards are established or not wouldn't be up for debate at that time, because we would have already made the decision earlier.
So it would be part of the same, it would be just part of the proposal put out by council. It wouldn't be sort of a separate question.
Correct.
Yeah. Thanks. Oh, sorry, and the timing of that other work, the review and that consultation on that. So what time?
So we would need to make an initial proposal in August of this year. And then following that is when we would go out and do the formal consultation process, and we would go through the Local Government Commission process, which is outlined in the report.
And that has to be completed by?
Was it the start of January, Dale? Just to confirm.
We must finish our initial proposal resolution by the 31st of August, and the formal process finished by Christmas, basically. So it goes off to the Commission in January, if required.
Yeah, so we would need to undertake a bit of work prior to that August date to sort of get the information to councillors for you to work through that and see what that looks like.
Yep, thank you.
Any further questions? No, not from the floor, sorry. No, unfortunately, this is a council meeting, and it's that's the way it rolls. However, we're going to put up a couple of motions, and because I'm aware, and I want this to be as democratic as it can be in the debate, for the purposes of debate, I want to move to suspend Standing Order number 23.8 around foreshadowed and further amendments. As you may know, if you foreshadow or further an amendment, you can't do that unless if you've already spoken in debate, right? It excludes you from. But because I think this is a significant issue and all councillors' voice should be heard at each level of the debate, I'd like to suspend that. Thank you. So I'll just do it by show of hands. All in favour of suspending that for the purposes of debate, please raise your hands. Martin? Rob? Rob, you thank you. Mark? I'm going to take Mark. Well, he's on his own. If he didn't say he's on the Zoom, that's what we will be doing. Thank you, councillors.
That motion is carried unanimously.
Yeah. I'm looking for the little blue hand. Okay. All right. Can we please put up the motion? Because none of the 4 motions that staff have recommended at this particular time have hit the table. But I've done some thinking to start the conversation for certain. And I'll talk to why I've proposed the motion in the way I have when it goes up. And at the same time, I believe that Maxine has proposed an amendment, okay? I haven't heard of, you've withdrawn your motion, Councillor O'Leary, at this point in time. I haven't heard from anyone else whether there is a foreshadowed amendment outside of that. But looking around the room, no, I would say not, unless it comes up, of course, as a course of debate. So can we please have that up on the screen? Okay.
Was the seconder of that amendment? Can that be noted?
Yes, yep, that was correct. Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Okay, let me just talk to it because this is not my debate. I just want to explain the intent of the motion, and then the other person is their right to explain that intent as well. Committed as I am to strengthening meaningful representation of Māori across all levels, this is just a little matter around timing and process and how far we can go. I would like to propose this because I think Hei Pō Manawa went out to the public, was a genuine attempt to engage about the wider Māori wellbeings for our community. And we had quite a high number of submissions to that. What's uncomfortable with me at this point in time, just the timing that's been placed upon us, is that we've heard the submissions, we've read the submissions, but we haven't taken on board any of the feedback, nor have we had any discussion, debate or deliberations on Hei Pō Manawa Ora. Hei Pō Manawa Ora has 30 actions in it, many of which look at increasing meaningful opportunities for Māori to shape the future within council at all levels, So this does include, as you can see, Māori wards. So this is at worst a delay, but at best it wraps it into a completely wider strategy in which we can consider how we get the best outcome for Māori. So that's the intent of it. Across all levels of the organisation, I say again, that's why I've crafted this one. I'll speak to it in debate, but I just wanted you to understand the intent of that motion. Maxine, do you need to explain yours?
Yes, indeed. This is option 3, as our presenters today know it. Just with the small modification around the consultation. And we've heard Becca this morning talk about the requirement for us, should we invoke Māori wards, that there is a requirement to consult on the wider representation review, and that offers an opportunity for the whole of the process to be discussed. In terms of consultation to date, me Paula, you've talked about Hei Pō Manawa Ora.
No, don't get into debate. Don't talk about that. Talk about...
No, so in terms of the consultation already around that...
There's no reference to Hei Pō Manawa in your motion,
there's
Maxine,
not.
So please stick to what you want to...
Very good. So
you will debate.
Yes, yeah. Okay. And so I believe that the consultation at that later stage will adequately provide an opportunity to talk about the whole rather than individual parts.
Thank you. That was very clear. Thank you. Is anybody confused about what councillors are providing for in this debate? No. Are there any questions? If not, we'll spend the meaningful time on the debate itself. As is standard process, and noting, of course, those suspended standing orders, we talk to the amendment first, don't we? But the movers will both get a chance to speak to their motion. So, as the mover of the substantive motion as it sits at the moment. I get to speak first, and then Maxine, you get to debate, and then we'll go through the process with councillors. So yes, can Sean ask a question about the amendment, Maxine? Or clarify?
I just want to clarify for the purposes of what, if that amendment is successful, that it's not suggesting there's any consultation now on the decision around Māori wards. It's just referring to consultation as part of the wider representation review.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's what's being suggested, and I'll talk more about that in the debate.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so speaking to my motion, let me be quite clear that I think it is time to have more meaningful engagement and participation, true participation of Māori. And we shouldn't be fearful of that. Any council will be stronger when we see greater diversity in general and when we have tangata whenua working alongside us. And as people have said today, what's good for Māori is good for everyone. How long must Māori wait? It's quite clear to me, and I accept that they've been underrepresented at this table. And this is not good, and this is not where I want to end up. I absolutely supported the removal of the poll, which works against Māori representation, but I'm concerned about the very tight timeframes this legislation is driving. I'm concerned that a rushed process will divide our city and not enrich it, will push the gap wider and not make the gap smaller between us all. I had a really good conversation with the Minister about her intent, and I listened to her debate and reread her notes. And what's most important is that we get the outcomes for Māori, that we get better outcomes for Māori across the board from what Council does. She acknowledged that Māori wards are one tool in a toolbox, and even those, they're not a perfect tool. They're not a perfect tool, because as a number of speakers today have said to us, you don't know who will be the successful candidate. You don't know whether they will represent even Waikato Tainui or the local hapu or iwi. You don't know. If they're on the Māori roll, they could run, they could be elected. That's why Māngai offers us a really good opportunity. But I think we can do more. I think we need to have a conversation, a much bigger conversation than we've ever had, about representation that weaves in all part of our business and empowers Māori to shape things way back at the beginning of a decision, not just at the end where we all say, all in favour say aye, but absolutely fundamentally to what we do. So please don't mistake this as I've gone away from my support in enriching Māori participation. I have not. I want to ensure that whatever we do in the next phase is built on a strong foundation that will drive the whole of the city forward, and that's the bottom line for me. Hamilton's model with Māngai Māori has been lauded as a very good one. It's a start. It is a good one. It's a start. It's not the end. Can we strengthen that role? Yes, we can. I've been having conversations with each individual Māngai to see what we could do to help them be more influential in everything that they touch. So I don't want to see the Māngai model dissolved. We absolutely should and must improve meaningful participation for Māori. And when you look at this motion, I intend to do that. You see it includes Māori wards. You see it includes Māngai Māori, but it includes other ways. But we're not going to do it before we've legitimately undertaken the whole process of Hei Po Manawa and deliberated and debated that, because I was genuine about engaging with the public on that, and I want the time to discuss that and debate it with my council. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Van Oosten.
Thank you. As the mover of the amendment, I'd like to focus us on three things. Firstly, it's the compelling need for a voice at the decision-making table for Māori. A couple of years ago, the Salvation Army said, and we've heard it also expressed today in the chamber, that that Māori voice is of benefit to all. A Māori voice means whānau, a Māori voice means community. It means respect for the land and a different way of thinking. As council, we've experienced that through our committees and the valuable contribution of our 5 Māngai Māori through our committee structures. They bring their expertise and their lived experiences to the table, asking questions and raising a perspective that opens other lenses. They're present at the conception of ideas and involved in the design and the shaping of solutions, but they cannot see them through to the final vote. That must be changed and it must be enhanced. Secondly, I want us to consider the timing. This certainly isn't the first time this issue of Māori representation has been raised and discussed in Hamilton or in the Waikato or New Zealand. It is regularly in the media alongside other topics of interest to Māori. It's on the minds of New Zealanders and the lips of our central government politicians. Right Honourable Nanaia Mahuta has led the enabling legislation that is the catalyst for this extraordinary meeting and debate. We have ourselves opened engagement through our He Po Manawa Ora strategy. Māori representation is well socialised and is the next logical step. Mana whenua of our local have campaigned vigorously and public opinion is moving. This is the right time to take the next step. It's one more tool to strengthen our partnership with iwi and honour our obligation to Te Tiriti. Finally, consultation or engagement. The views of our community are important to me. I've worked hard to engage residents on a wide range of issues. Engagement is crucial to understanding the aspirations of all of our residents, to turn them into vision and enable change. He Po Manawa Ora is an example of this. We had more than 1,000 submitters and there were hundreds of individual pieces of feedback, many specifically on the Po of unity. Hamilton City Council's support for Māori input into local decision making. We didn't hide that. It's been socialised and we've received views on it. I believe that recent engagement and feedback can be relied on as a positive affirmation of endorsing Māori wards. To consult again would be another hoop for Māori to be put through. It's unreasonable when this is not expected of Hamilton East or Hamilton West wards. I propose consultation be on the wider representation review, including the list that sits on page 11 in the report. And it's not out of step with the approach that other councils have taken. I ask that you too seize the opportunity to act now and add Māori wards and vote for the amendment along with Martin and I. The motion does not deliver Māori wards. It just says it will be considered further. Kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui. Kia ora.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, we're in debate. So, yeah, Councillor Thompson. So we're debating both together at this point in time.
Tēnā koe, ngā mihi nui. Thank you everyone who spoke today and for your words. I have heard a lot of questions today about whether Māori can stand and successfully become elected members on merit, whether Tainui is putting up candidates, about whether Māori have been elected previously, but to me all of these are red herrings. The real question, I think, was put really succinctly and really clearly by Māngai Hemi. Do you believe under Te Tiriti Māori should be here anyway? Really the question today is, do we as a council want to guarantee that our partners under Te Tiriti have a seat at the tepu? That is the question. He Paumanawa order under He Paumanawa order, we can see that we've already heard many submitters come in and say that representation at council is important to them. We've heard strong submissions or speakers today also in support of greater representation around this table. I think we've had a clear steer that this is an important step. It's not a perfect tool, but it does help us to build on the strides we've already made, and together we can keep walking this journey and building towards a better future. So it's one more step that we can take. We need councillors around this table who can speak on Māori issues as well as speak for the entire well-being of the city. And we've heard that right now we're not delivering that. Do we want to guarantee that our partners are here around the table? That is the question today. And I think that for me the answer is very simple. The answer is yes.
I just have to make a little correction that something that Maxine said in her debate was factually incorrect. It relates to the ability to overturn the decision through...
It's just, sorry, just to clarify that if you make a decision to establish Māori wards through that decision, that's not something that can be undone through the consultation on a wider representation review.
So hang on, Dave.
My point of order is the Speaker did not say
I can chair the meeting, thank you, and I can ask that question. I just want to get clarity from both sides.
Sorry, as a member, I'm entitled to make a point of order.
I'm in the middle of dealing with something, Dave, and let's see what Sean was going to say, and then we can clarify with the mover of the motion. Thank you.
It was just in relation to the last statement that Councillor Maxine had
So what
made.
you heard in the statement was potentially that...
What I thought I had heard was that a decision today doesn't establish Māori wards, it continues the conversation, or words to that effect.
So hang on, I'm going to ask you, Max. So your intent was to say that in the consultation that goes with representative review, what were you saying?
My last statement was that the motion does not deliver Māori wards, it just delivers the consideration of them.
No, but
mine
that's
is
incorrect.
the amendment, which does deliver a Māori ward. The motion is for, and if you scroll down, you'll be able to see the wording of that.
Yep, so the absolute clarity from Councillor Van Oosten, it was confusion between the motion and the amendment. You are correct. Sorry for interrupting the flow of the meeting.
Kia ora, thank you.
Very good. So easily solved when we communicate. Thank you very much. Sorry, so we were in the flow of debate. Is there any further debate? Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks everyone for your comments so far. It's a really important issue today, and I acknowledge all the comments. Firstly, I want to acknowledge Hana Maipi in her presentation this morning in the haka. It was very powerful, and I think she's certainly an up-and-coming young leader. I want to start by quoting some of the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta's letter that was read the second time for the amendment bill, because there's some things in there that I think she says very well. There were views that the measures to provide, the reviews that the bill is anti-democratic. I disagree. The bill recognises that the Treaty of Waitangi helps to shape and design a democracy that is of us. It belongs to us. It is founded here in our country, and it can only be found here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And I support those comments. Also, she goes on to say, but just because the community can no longer veto the Council's decision does not mean it should be excluded from the decision-making process. I issue mayors and councillors with this challenge. Speak to your communities, your iwi, your hapu, and decide whether this is the right path for you. And I acknowledged the words of Mangai Hemi earlier, and he said, we quoted Mike Moore and talked about the 20% and the 80%. Part of the process in talking, and this has been a journey for me too, is bringing the 80% closer to the 20%. And my fear, and I support both the intent of the motion and the amendment today, but I want to bring others with us on that journey as well. And I appreciate this hasn't been a quick journey for you in the audience today. Councillor Tipa Mahuta, I'm not sure if she's still here. She's a bit of a hero for me. I'm a little bit nervous about this change, if I'm perfectly honest. It's sort of new territory and it challenges my comfort zone, but I'm prepared to go on that journey. And people like her give me confidence that that we can walk it together. I guess and I also acknowledge all the comments from all the Māngai and our guests today. Māngai Hemi also, an old wise voice, said the issue is not going away, and I can see that and I acknowledge that also. To the audience, I encourage you, please don't come at me with aggression. Please come at me with a gentleness and a view to work on reconciliation. Let's work on whakamana, whakatika, mahi tahi, and we'll get there together. Kia ora.
Hamilton, Councillor Gallagher.
I just acknowledge the previous speaker, and with some naivety I would hope that the spirit of this debate will reflect the deep thought and the conciliation, even though I have a slightly different perspective to the previous speaker. And probably I'm naively hoping that social media commentary on this debate will focus on the issues and not the personalities, that we can still have a cup of tea afterwards. As my colleagues are aware, in these areas, notwithstanding that I are a former parliamentary colleague of the Honourable Nana Mahuta, when it comes to local government issues around Māori wards, I have traditionally been very cautious and conservative. Indeed, with regard to wanting Māori wards, Mayor Julia Hardacre and Deputy Mayor Gordon Chesterman were more radical at the time than myself. I was quite cautious. When Andrew King, I was his Deputy Mayor, introduced the Maunga Māori concept, I had worked in a different, with Ngāhui Haumi committee. I didn't support it at the time. I believe that Mayor Andrew was brave, courageous and very honourable, and I will publicly say, as I've said before, Mayor Andrew on the Maunga Māori issue was right, Councillor Martin Gallagher was wrong. And I think the Maunga Māori reps have done an incredible contribution. The irony, however, is not lost on me. They're not part of this debate. Not part of this debate because, of course, they don't sit as elected members at the full council table. The issue has been raised about, former members of council of Māori ethnicity. None of them would claim to represent Māori as such. But I just want to honour and pay tribute, as I have in the past, to my good friend and colleague, Councillor Perehira Kaio. She was part of our residence council ticket back in 1986. We had 5 wards, and I was in the Hamilton East Hillcrest ward. She was a colleague in the Frankton Dinsdale ward, and we worked together as a team, and Perehira was elected, and then consequently, under Sir Ross Jansen, she became, when I was Deputy Mayor back then, she became the chair of the Community Services Committee, the equivalent to the committee that Councillor Bunting and you yourself have led. And she made an incredible contribution. She then subsequently worked for the Honourable Sandra Lee as Minister of Local Government under the Clark-Anderton government. Perehira has obviously had a huge influence on my life. All I would say is, I guess, and I was with Sir Ross Jansen and Perehira Kaio on that journey, and I was really personally touched and moved that one of our contributors acknowledged to Ross as being part of that journey. If Ross could look down on me now, he would say, Martin, what has taken so long? So I'll listen to the late Sir Ross's advice, and that's why I second this motion, this amendment.
Thank you. Any more debaters? Martin, Rob, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I can't see who else is up on the board, but thank you for the opportunity to participate in this debate. Look, I think this is a very, very important decision, and I think from a perception view, the action that has initiated this discussion happened under fast-track, under urgency legislation of central government. I think what we now have is an opportunity to reflect on the changes and to bring our community, iwi and puku, along with us in acting in a much more, I won't say relaxed way, but in a much more cautious way, without that urgency that central government used. I reflect on earlier comments from Manga Maori, and one that's been an important factor in my professional life, and the way I think going forward is that we should do it once and we should do it right, and for that reason I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Any others but Councillor McPherson?
Thank you. I don't support the motion, I support the amendment. It would be supremely ironic if the unfinished business of Hei Paumanawa Ora was to be used as a reason for delaying this decision for at least 3 years, if not longer. I appreciate the comments and the wish for people to have that as being a major, that strategy as being a major part of our work going forward. But this is a different issue. We didn't choose the timing. The government has chosen the timing situation, so we're stuck with that. Unfortunately, the motion does not enable or guarantee Māori wards. All it does is require consideration of that. I would have more sympathy for that if it had said we are going to do them, but not just yet. That might be my plan B. It simply says it is to be considered, Your Worship. Now, I'm in favour of Hemi's dial 111 solution. Option 3, the issue of Māori wards has had wide discussion in this council and community for at least 20 years. In the year 2000, I was involved in this council where we discussed how we could better involve Māori, and that was one of the proposals that came forward at that time. The journey has been long, and it was happening before I was on council as well. I commend Tipa Mahuta for coming today and talking about her situation, like Ryan. And I'd say to Ryan, the regional council still got up the next morning after she was elected. They still fined other councils for breaches and left big businesses to just with a warning. They still did all the same things they used to, but it did add a greater, wider voice of the community after she got elected. Central government has had Māori seats for a long, long, long time, and I commend the progressive leadership recently of Judith Collins, the leader of the National Party. It may surprise you to hear me say that, where they have declared they now support Māori seats and are going to participate and engage in those, whereas a certain former leader, Don Brash, did the opposite. Everyone is heading in that direction. The Māngai have been excellent, but are not representatives at the highest level, as they themselves have pointed out. Some even around this table complained when we brought them in 2 and a bit years ago that they were unelected. Well, here's your chance to get some elected members. So just think about what you said there. It was pointed out, I'm not sure whether it's by Hemi or Norm, the old law was effectively discriminatory. 80% of the population could effectively make decisions that were germane to 20% of the population. That is not a good way going forward. That is not the Tiriti partnership that's talked about in Article 1 that has been explained by Sarah and other speakers already.
Time, last
Thank
point.
you. Yep. So the final point I would say is issues like whether we have extra seats or reduced salaries are irrelevant to this. What is the principle we support? And if we support Māori representation, let's put it in place. Let's not kick it for touch for another 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Deputy Mayor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. I'd like to start by thanking the submitters, some of whom left quite an impression on me, particularly the less combative ones. I voted enthusiastically for Mangai Māori a few years ago, so hear me, I do want you on the bus. I have had some concerns about the wards and if that truly achieves what you hope it will achieve. I have a view which I've addressed through questions and Councillor Thompson referred to, that Māori, I don't think have sufficiently tested the possibility of getting elected organically. I'm stunned that Tainui as an organisation hasn't got in and backed some candidates, bankrolled them. To me, a number of elected Māori on this council would be a much more powerful signal for Māoridom than having seats as of right. I think you're giving up way too easily, particularly with the electorate that is now out there. This council is more representative than previous ones. We have STV, which was hailed as a great new tool for diversity. So I would urge you to keep trying. In terms of, Councillor McPherson referred to, central government being a way ahead in terms of Māori electorates. Well, I would ask whether Māori are further ahead now than they were 40 years ago. How well has that actually worked? And I think the jury's out on that. So this motion will probably be seen as a delaying tactic, but I don't think it is. I do think to expect us to make a significant decision today without having a decent conversation with the rest of our community first is unrealistic and unfair. The fact is, Mayor Paula and this council has set up this process, Hupo Manua Ora, by which the community can have honest, difficult conversations about where we're at. The council backed that, and so did our Māori partners. The whole understanding of that process was that we would discuss an overall strategy, not rushing to specific outcomes, because that's what's got us into trouble before, making decisions in isolation. So, but here we are with this. There's a lot of talking and a lot of listening still to be done. We listened to the submissions last week. We did a lot of listening, and I think Māori have to do some listening too. Because if there's one thing I would politely point out that I felt about the submitters last week was I just felt that at times there was a lack of aspiration. There was a feeling that it came from a negative place for me. And I feel that we do live in a free society. Yes, there are economic barriers, more so than ever before. Economic privilege exists, but we are still blessed with relative freedoms. And I would just have a plea not to give up on aspiration in terms of getting elected organically, because I think if you put the resources in, just as I did. There's a shaking head there, but I spent 35k and knocked on 15,000 doors. Time Tainui came to the party. Thank you.
Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Mayor Southgate. My concern with the amendment is that it excludes those groups that elected me as an official around this table. And I heard what Councillor Tipa Mahuta said, and it rung a chord with me in terms of, she clarified for me how Māori wards, how a representative that's elected in a Māori ward then speaks for that ward, which is different to and we used the example of Councillor Forsyth. And so that rang a chord with me in terms of how my experience in this chamber and how I've been very privileged to have been elected a few times now in my West Ward. So putting that same discussion and environment into my experience, I can't make a decision today that excludes the people that I represent, them from having a voice. I respect the advice that when we were in this chamber last term and we were talking about how to include Māori in our decision-making process much better than we have done in the past. And we had iwi speak to us around their preference at the time for the Māngai, and we've seen just how much value that gives us. Their, as I recall, their discussion was around keeping their eye on that long-term goal of eventually having Māori wards, but they themselves wanted to take the wider community along with us in this journey. I don't feel that the motion is delaying anything. As Mayor Southgate's pointed out, we had overwhelming support from the over 1,000 submissions, I think it was, for the new strategy. So I'm looking forward to that deliberations and debate that's coming up. And yeah, I think the fact that we've taken the community along with us with that strategy is actually quite a huge step. And I know when we put in Māori structure that was a huge step as well. So those are really two positive things. So if I'm sitting around this table next term, if the motion goes through, not the amendment, and we consider Māori wards, I'm going to be supportive of that as long as we can consult with the people that put me here and the people in my group, in my ward that I represent as well. So kia ora, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah. Thanks, Mayor Paula. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of feedback on Hi Pu Manawa Ora and the discussions we've had around that. And it's triggered fascinating insights into society. On one side of the pendulum, we'll have white Pākehā Kiwis sitting here saying, actually, the treaty doesn't really exist. We've misinterpreted if it did exist. And then we've had other ends of the pendulum saying, actually, what it really means is total sovereignty for Māori. Māori should have the majority of the seats around the table, and they should have at least 50% of the budget. And we've had that submitted from that chair just in the last couple of weeks. And the only reason I remind people of that occurring is that while I sit here today, I've myself moved back and forth of where I need to be to have my conscious land correctly. And I'm fearful to say the words because I've said it once in an election. For me, it's about getting the balance right. And let me be very clear. We have a treaty, and we have treaty partners, and we need to give value and respect that. And Māori are our treaty partners. How their voice is to be heard is an area I'm still trying to grapple with, because 2 years ago, when I was overseas, I spoke to or texted a couple of councillors around here as they were debating Māori wards or Manga Māori. And I was somewhat surprised at the time they chose not to go for Māori wards. They went for Manga Māori. And they argued that was because it would give the broadest representation, that they would be very valued, and that they would negate the likelihood of the community using a mechanism to reverse it subsequently. Having now been re-elected and have worked with some of the Manga Māori, I have to say they have mana in this meeting room. They speak with authority and they speak with an insight that adds value. The difficulty I have today is, while trying to pay respect to my partner in this partnership, is whether or not, and let me just emphasise this, because I've heard a lot of New Zealanders say, oh, but at the heart of the treaty it's racist because it places one group above another. Well, in fact, the reality is it does, because they were the founding people and they do have special rights. So I'm grappling because it's not an issue of whether or not I don't agree that there is a treaty. It's whether or not, or what mechanism we use to have their voice heard. And I like the Manga Maori model. And 2 years ago, we were being sung around the country how wonderful this innovation was. And now, by some quarters, we're being told it doesn't go far enough. I need more time. I need to go out, like Councillor Angela, to my broad community and test whether or not it's Manga Maori or Maori ward seats. Where I'm clear is it's not both, because it shouldn't be both, because that swings the pendulum beyond a partnership. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Councillor Kate, Naida Rofe.
Thank you. And I too would like to acknowledge all the speakers today and acknowledge all the debate that I've heard. I've struggled with this one, if I have to be honest. I went to bed thinking one thing and woke up thinking another, and so it was quite important for me to listen today with an open mind and work out just where this sits. I understand, Māori are partners to the Crown. I understand the importance of co-governance. And I truly believe that having Māori representation, it's the right thing to do. I know that. What doesn't sit right is that even the reports talk about, we've only engaged with the Māori sector and we know how they feel. So I think it's quite important that we do have a wider conversation, and it's not. And for me, it's not about a referendum of sorts. Like, I understand that it should be a right. Like, we should be partners. But what I think is more important is that we have buy-in from the wider public. We want to take people on the journey with us. We want people to understand, we want them to share the knowledge, and we want them to come on this journey with us. I would always advocate for fair representation. I think it's really important. But the question is, how do we do that? I like one part of the motion in that it will address all levels of council, because that's another thing that I've been thinking about quite often. And it's, when decisions come to council, and then we're debating whether a Māori lens has been passed over it, whereas I think it should start from the beginning, from the bottom. There should be a Māori lens put on every document, on everything council related before it even reaches the governance level. So do we need a Māori liaison? Do we need Māori liaison people within council, within every department, making sure that we are addressing everything that we need to? Something that Mangai Hemi touched on about numbers, if we take this out to the public, Māori are a minority, but I want to have faith in our community. After all, they voted me here, and I'm a minority. And I think that we should actually give them the benefit. Can I? Yep. I could go on for another 10 minutes because I've got a novel here. But I was born in South Africa. I grew up in an apartheid era. And I know that if anything I've learned, it's that the last 30 years is that in either direction, too much in either direction does not reach a desirable outcome. And I think that is really important that we do this together for our next generation. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. We have had Councillor Bunting on the call from Zoom. He's the only one that hasn't debated. He may choose not to, of course. Mark, do you want to debate? No, he doesn't. He's not in a position where he can debate at the moment. So that brings me to my right of reply. I just want to make sure that I tackle this in the way I intend to. This was not intended to be a delaying tactic. It's intended to be, my motion is intended to be a positive move forward. It's intended to signal that, in fact, I believe we can go further and deeper to the point where Māori representation does infuse all levels of decision-making and activities of this council. But equally so, public engagement is very critical to me. So this is not going to be an easy decision for me, but I have stood up in my campaign and said I want full community public engagement and to bring people on a journey with us. I will continue to promote meaningful, deep participation for Māori. And in fact, the recommendation I put in includes Māori seats, because I do think Māori seats are an important part of the solution. But I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about the whole system. And I want to work with Māori, and I want to engage with my community as I do that. So sometimes it's really difficult, because doing what's right is not always easy, and what people see as right or you see as right will differ. But I feel like I need to do right for the whole community. I need to move this forward as positively as possible. Just note, by the way, that it was 2 votes that brought the Māori seats to the Regional Council, myself and Lois Livingston. So I have experience of this. But those 2 votes weren't exercised for some time. It took 9 years to actually get those elected members to the table for the iwi to work with us to make that happen. And, you know, they do work well. But also what works well in Regional Council is having Māori around the co-governance table and in other ways. So there's a whole body of talk that I want to do. So I know I have many colleagues who have known me for a very long time in the Māori world, and I want to say to you, I am on your side. This intention is to move forward positively as people have asked for. And I see Māori seats as one tool in a very big toolbox that we need to talk about. And having only a short period of time to do this with an artificial deadline has not been comfortable for me whatsoever. So what it says up there is what I will do, is we will go through the process of He Pomano Ora. We definitely will head towards Māori seats, and we will look at what else is on offer to make a stronger way forward for all of us. So, yep, not an easy one. I, like Kesh, struggled with this. There was a heart and mind battle going on many times over in the last week. But that's where I've landed, for a good purpose. I don't share some of the points of other colleagues who may support me in this motion, because those sit squarely with them, not me. So there's where we land. We will now go to the vote. We put the amendment first. What's happening here? Are we waiting on anyone? Councillor Pascoe? And Councillor Mark? Mark's gone. Oh, yeah, Mark's voted again. Yeah.
Mayor Paula, I can't see very much from here.
So this is the amendment. This is Maxine and...
Yes, I realise that. Do you want a show of hands from me?
Yes, a show of hands from you will be fine. So a vote, yes, a show of hands will be fine Vote on the amendment, please. So you spoke against the amendment. Are you voting on the amendment or?
Yes, I'm voting against the amendment.
Against the amendment. Okay.
Point of order, Madam Chair, in relation to Councillor Bunting, is even if his vote's on the recorded on the screen, I don't believe, understanding all this, it can be recorded if he's not present on Zoom at the time of the vote.
He is present.
Is he? Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, we can't see him.
No, he was present. He's popped up from time to time. There he is. Look. Would you like to look?
Yep.
He's there. I can see him.
No,
I can't
no,
see
we
it.
can.
But,
I voted against the amendment.
Thanks.
thank you. And you are on camera, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
he's
so
driving.
what's the outcome, please, staff?
The amendment is lost, noting that councillors Gallagher, McPherson, Van Oosten and Thompson voted for.
Okay, so now we go to the vote on this substantive motion, please. Mark, Rob, yep, they've done it.
Yes, Chair, I'm voting for the motion.
Yep, Mark's put his hand up too.
So the motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the way that we've run this council with respect and passion. If I could just finish, please, before we go out. I do respect the audience, and I'm pleased that we were able to have honest, passionate debate. This is the start of our new and brave conversation, which we begin now. Thank you.
What was the recommendation? Can I ask?
It's up. Oh, it's done now. I can come and talk to you.
Sorry? Then I think all Māori things come off. You should not be on this table if this is going to wait for another 4 years. You should not. You should not. Stand on this council.
Excuse me. Council, we're adjourned.
This is where we're going up to 160 years. Then this
Thank you.